Coming up tonight on News Center Now, conversion therapy is now banned in Maine. We'll tell you why one man who lives here who went through conversion therapy believes that's the right call.
And if you were watching News Center Maine at 5:30 yesterday, you may have seen at Verify about $25 insulin available at Walmart. Well, that has a lot of you talking today, and we're digging a little deeper.
And we're all set for Game 2 of the Stanley Cup Finals tonight. We'll have a preview from Boston, and we'll tell you the story of some Mainers who snuck into the celebration the last time the Bruins won the Stanley Cup. This is News Center Now.
A controversial bill banning conversion therapy for minors is now law in Maine.
And it's something that hundreds of you are weighing in on through social media. Good evening, everyone, and thanks for joining us. I'm Lindsay Mills.
And I'm Lee Nelson. This is a topic we've been following for weeks, of course, as the debate raged on in Augusta. Now it's law. No therapy that tries to change a person's sexual orientation or gender identity, except if it helps somebody going through a gender transition. Chris Costas here now to explain why so many people are talking about this. Hey, Chris.
Hey, Lee and Lindsay. While there are no reported instances of someone practicing conversion therapy in Maine, the supporters of the law believe the practice subjects people to shame and humiliation. Opponents of this now law say they do not believe in any type of torture to force kids to change their sexual identity, but they do believe the law is overreaching. In front of snapping cameras, Governor Janet Mills signs the bill banning conversion therapy of minors.
It's a harmful, widely discredited practice that only attempts to make LGBTQ youth feel ashamed of who they are.
May this oblation, O Lord.
Some of Maine's Christian leaders believe this now law goes too far.
We were not advocating change those kids. We were basically saying you're taking a resource away from them.
The law not only outlaws the practice, but also prevents a wide variety of counselors and medical professionals from advertising, offering, or administering conversion therapy to anyone under 18.
Many people that age who are confused. Maybe they go to church, they believe in the Lord, and they just don't feel good about where they're at, and they're asking for help.
And it was my deepest struggle and shame.
People like Randy Cathcart. Growing up in a religious family, he was taught the only way God would love him was if he were straight.
I was so committed to being straight, I did anything I could to try to make that happen.
He married a woman, had 2 kids, and even experimented with conversion therapy.
It taught me not to trust myself and my experience.
For him, conversion therapy did not work and doesn't make sense. Even though he loved his wife emotionally, it fell short of the romance partners hope to share.
I started to recognize that the impact on my family was devastating as I'm trying to do what I believe is right.
They separated. They're still friends, but Randy feels more comfortable with himself now.
When I started to live at peace with who I was, then I started to find peace in all sorts of ways in my life.
And now Randy has something big to look forward to. Randy is getting married to his partner in August. Maine is now the 17th state that has passed a law prohibiting young kids from conversion therapy. And Lee and Lindsay, that law goes into effect 90 days after the legislature adjourns.
Okay, all right, pretty darn soon. Interesting story. Thank you, Chris, very much.
Thank you.
All right, speaking of getting ready for that summer recess, we're getting ready for summer
Been
feels.
trying to.
Been trying, I
Yeah.
know. Keith, what's going on?
These backward steps are annoying.
What's that?
These backward steps that we take are annoying.
Yeah, I know, and we're doing it for a while. I have a
Yeah.
chart that I was just showing, Ryan and I were just looking at it. It goes out 16 days, and it doesn't have us over 73 at any point during that. Not that that's going to be necessarily accurate, but it gives
Right.
you kind
Just
of a
some-
picture.
All right.
Yeah.
That could be worse, though. I thought you were going to say like 60.
No.
So-
We'll get above that on Friday, so
Okay.
we'll be good. Temperatures today, though, consistently cool statewide in the low 50s pretty much everywhere, and we didn't do much better than that except for far northern Maine. Again, we don't get to say this very often, but Frenchville, best spot in the state weather-wise, and Presque Isle too, the 50s elsewhere. Clouds kind of split right over northern Maine. Most of us, though, were socked in. We had a few minutes where we were flirting with the idea of breaking out the sun in a lot of places, but it just didn't happen. We just brightened up the skies a little bit. Meanwhile, to our southwest, a couple of showers. Some of those will clip York County, but more interestingly is the severe weather outbreak that has gone on for over 10 days now has shifted its way into Pennsylvania for a second straight day. So it's been really nasty stuff there. They're stuck in a much more dangerous pattern. Hour-by-hour forecast overnight tonight, staying cloudy. And then tomorrow, guys, it's not terrible. It's not amazing, but we might see a little bit more sun than we did today, getting us into the 60s. I still have relatively high hopes, though, for Friday and Saturday, so we'll talk more about that in a few.
It's just so Maine to have to use the AC one day and the heat the next.
I actually moved a portable AC unit out of the way to get to a Rinnai heater. So that last night, that's pretty much all you need to know.
They're fighting against each other. All
Very
right.
good.
Thanks, Steve. See you in a bit.
It's a story you may have seen yesterday on News Center Maine at 5:30. Our verified team confirming there is a form of insulin available at Walmart for less than $25.
Yeah, it's something that has a lot of people talking on Facebook. Megan writes, "What really bothers me about this is that it's available without a prescription. Insulin is a very dangerous drug if not taken appropriately." Mercedes says, "Unfortunately, as many have stated, not all insulin is the same, nor does it work the same for every diabetic." And Aaron writes, "I used it for gestational diabetes because insurance was ridiculously high for name brand. This isn't as good, though."
And as one viewer wrote to us directly, it's not the solution, she says, to high insulin prices for everyone. And she's encouraging everyone to look further than the headlines. So tonight, we're digging a little deeper. Brenna Youngblood's 3-year-old son Gabe was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when he was just a year old. His medications cost hundreds of dollars a month. Fortunately for the Youngblood family, insurance covers most of the cost. Youngblood reached out to News Center Maine following a recent story confirming there is a version of insulin available at Walmart for $25 called RelyOn insulin.
It's a little frustrating.
But the insulin doesn't work with all diabetics, especially in her son.
It peaks at a certain time of day, and as anybody with children can verify, kids don't always want to eat the same thing, the same carb count at the same time every day.
They're older insulins, so they definitely are less prescribed. They're only available as vial and syringe, and most patients these days tend to use insulin pens, or for type 1, certainly a lot of our patients are on insulin pumps.
Dr. Richard Siegel of Tufts Medical Center in Boston serves patients in Maine via telemedicine. He says while RelyOn is an older version of insulin, it's something he prescribes.
It can still help get blood sugar down. It still needs, all the usual monitoring. But people need to be familiar with how these older insulins work.
Patients on RelyOn may need to monitor their blood sugar a little more closely, and the timing of the dose is different compared to modern insulins. Dr. Todd Hobbs, the chief medical officer at Novo Nordisk Incorporated, which makes RelyOn, says, quote, "The difference in the types of insulin is related to how slowly or rapidly they are absorbed once injected. Scientific advances over the years have made improvements on the speed and length of time this absorption occurs." Brenna Youngblood says the regimen of using the older insulin is something that would not work for her son.
If he were on this insulin and if he had to eat the same thing at noontime every day, and then he decides he doesn't want to eat at noontime, he could potentially have a very dangerous low blood sugar.
And says the need for lower insulin prices is urgent, despite what we may read in the headlines.
Oh, there's a $25 insulin at Walmart, so these people who want their $600 vial of insulin are just being picky, when it's not true. Insulin isn't just insulin. It's all medication. What works for one person might not work for somebody else, and I think people need to be more open-minded to that.
And medical experts say any insulin should be used under the direction of a doctor. And in case you missed our story yesterday, in summary, since 2000, Walmart has sold RelyOn insulin, the only private insulin brand on the market, retailing at $24.88 per vial, according to a Walmart spokesperson. It comes in RelyOn Novolin Regular, RelyOn Novolin NPH, and RelyOn Novolin 70/30 Mix. Now, in November last year, Walmart launched the RelyOn Novolin 70/30 insulin pen. The cash price for a pack of 5 of those pens is $42.88 compared to $300 for the brand name option.
So good that you went farther into this, because clearly it's not a simple thing, but for somebody who does not have diabetes, I thought, okay, insulin, great, everybody should just go to Walmart. It is not that answer at all, is it?
Absolutely, and a good lesson, just to look a little deeper than the headlines and that sort of thing, and that's what we try to do here on News Center Now.
There you go. Hey, so here's a question. Do you sleep with your phone?
I do.
The number of people who do might surprise you.
And coming up, it's Game 2 of the Stanley Cup Finals between the Bees and the Blues. Hannah Deneen and Jess Gagne are here to preview what they have for us later in the show.
Yeah, that's right. The Bruins won Game 1 here on Monday. Can they do it again in Game 2? We're live with a preview of your Stanley Cup Finals coverage.
And coming up, we have a wild story about a man from Maine who, through some sneakiness and a series of lucky breaks, managed to get into the Bruins locker room in Vancouver when they won the Cup in 2011. You're going to want to hear that.
How about this? A startling new study shows Americans simply cannot put the mobile devices down.
Yeah, not even after the lights are out. 1,000 teenagers and parents were surveyed, and the vast majority in this study reported taking their devices right to bed with them. 29% of the teens actually slept with their phones. More than a third of the teens and a quarter of the parents said they wake up during the night to check their phones. We also aren't listening to the doctor when it comes to having no screen time in the hour before going to bed. The majority of both groups said they checked their devices within 30 minutes of falling asleep.
Wow.
Waking up, I can't fathom that. Waking up to check your phone.
Now that's a wake-up call.
Yes, it really is. Yeah. Hey, coming up next, a Bruins fan takes a look back at the celebration of a lifetime. I'll show you that.
And I'm sure Keith has plenty to celebrate now with this brand new shiny weather set. His full forecast coming up.
So the Bruins are 3 wins away from hoisting another Stanley Cup, not unlike this coffee cup.
News Center's Jess Gagne and Hannah Deneen are in Boston tonight covering Game 2 of the Finals. It wasn't long ago that fans were celebrating the last Bruins title win, but Jess and Hannah, it didn't happen where you are.
No, it did not, actually. The last time the Bruins won the Stanley Cup in Boston was in 1970, and they swept, guess which team, Hannah?
The St. Louis Blues.
St. Louis Blues, yes, they did. But Bruins fans do know that the Bruins won the Cup in 2011, but that actually happened in Vancouver in Game 7.
Yeah, and I have an incredible story about that game. A man from Cape Elizabeth weaseled his way into the Bruins locker room after they won the Cup. It all started when he and his business partner triggered last-minute flights to Vancouver and were lucky enough to be seated right next to the friends and family of the Boston Bruins.
It was a beautiful day. Checked into our hotel, went around town, just looking, for a place to grab a beer and something to eat, and nobody would let us in. We had our Bruins jerseys on, and we're not welcome anywhere. Just booed out of establishments. We ended up getting into the building as soon as it opened. As the game progresses and the clock's ticking down, and people around us all have these wristbands to get down into the locker room. And I remember saying to my business partner, Jim Bonby, I'm like, we gotta find our way down there. Game ends, we make our way down to where the Vancouver bench is, and all the security personnel has gone down the tunnel with the Vancouver players. This is after the handshake and everything. So we just jumped over literally, you could literally just jump down like 4 feet onto the bench and went out onto the ice. And then Jim jumped down, but a security guard caught him and brought him through and made him go back up into the stands. At this point, I was out on the ice and just celebrating with the families. What happened was there was a lot of riots. Cars were being overturned, things were being burned out in the streets, and Rogers Center security just jumped into action. So they corralled us essentially into the Bruins locker room. We just stood there by Tim Thomas's locker and watched the celebration go on. All the guys taking turns drinking out of the cup. Chara's passing it around to everybody, and then they let everybody in the locker room have a turn. And that was incredible. I got a chance to hold the cup, actually to hoist it, because they wanted everybody in the locker room to have that opportunity. It was it was a night that something you're never gonna forget.
David Weatherby told me that when he did get into the locker room, he told some of the Bruins players what he'd done, and they were so excited that someone had traveled all the way from Maine to Vancouver to watch them play. No, they were fine with this. So, and during the spring, they got a new puppy, Jess, and they named him Patrice Bergeron. Bergie for short.
Bergie, give him a little pet. All right, coming up later on News Center Maine at 5:30, we talk to somebody from the dark side, a member of the St. Louis Blues who actually played in the state of Maine. We'll have more on that, so stick with us.
Interesting.
Send it back to you, Lee and Lindsay.
All right.
Very cool.
Sounds great. We should mention, too, by the way, that the Bruins game is not on NBC tonight. It's on TV. It's not on NBC tonight.
All right.
Do we know where it is?
Another network.
Another, oh.
Yes.
A network with no name?
Right. Right.
The network that shall not be named.
Actually, I don't know the answer, so that was what I threw out. Oh, it's on the NBC Sports Network.
That has
there
a
you go.
name,
So it's
then.
not. It's not on the regular this channel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
It's all good. I didn't know
Do
the
I
answer
have
to that
that
either.
station? It's probably like 458 somewhere on the
Right.
dial. All right. Like, at what point are you not on TV anymore? If you get high enough in the dial, it's like I don't know if it counts anymore. Or too low's no good either.
No.
That's true.
6 is a good number, you know. I guess 2 is okay too. All right. High temperatures today in the mid-50s. 62 in Caribou was the warm spot. That's the only spot we saw any sunshine. And this isn't to rub it in, but it kind of is. Look at all this heat down here. DC 91, Charlotte 94, 93 in Atlanta. And we're just on the wrong side of this front. If you recall last week, the models had that front getting into Boston. They were way off. The front is down closer to DC and actually to the south of New York City. Visible satellite was cloudy for most of us. We had just some sun over northern Maine. A couple of showers we're watching here into Massachusetts. They've tended to dry out, though, in the northern part of them. So I'm not sure we're going to see too many of those tonight. They look to be sailing down across southern Massachusetts and Connecticut. So it's largely cloudy tonight. Might see some fog, probably see some mist again that won't show up on the radar. And tomorrow starts off very similar to today. However, I think in the afternoon we do a little better than today and start to see a little bit more sunshine, a little brightening of the skies at least. Still not nice. Upper 50s, some low 60s, should be warmer than today. Overnight we see some rain Thursday night into Friday morning. Then we clear out Friday mid-morning. After that it's sunny through Friday afternoon. Temperatures in the mid and upper 60s and a chance to pop to 70 for a brief period of time. And then we ride into Saturday, and Saturday looks good as well. For a while, the European model was telling us we might be able to salvage Sunday too, but now it's kind of backed off that. So Sunday, we're going to keep it where it was, which is showery. And if something happens in the models tomorrow, then great. But the pattern is such that we've got these little disturbances coming through. The tricky part about this kind of pattern is because none of these storms are big, it's really the devil in the details as to when the impulses come through exactly. So one comes through tomorrow night into Friday morning, then we clear out for a bit, but the next one approaches for Sunday, and that's why there's some uncertainty on Sunday, because if it slows down just enough, we'll get most of the day in on Sunday, but if it's kind of on time or ahead of schedule, Sunday's a showery day, so we'll have to watch that impulse as it kind of enters in a little bit more. So all this talk of showers, yet at the end of the day, not all that much rain to be had. This is all the way through Sunday, it's basically nothing. And actually that's kind of been a hallmark of our pattern that hasn't been nice in May either. People say like, hey, we must have had a top 10 wet May. No, we had a lot of days with rain. We didn't have that much total rain. Some years you could have a system that comes through, drops 10 inches of rain, the rest of the May is great, but on the record books, it'll go down as the wettest. So wettest, I think, is not the best statistic for what it feels like. It should be
number of days.
Yeah. For sensory perception aspect of it.
Right.
Basements don't care how many days it was rainy, they care how much rain. But for people, I think it's more about that.
Yeah.
Been putting those pumps to work, that's for sure.
Yeah. All right.
Lee too.
Interesting. No.
Oh, we're done
No.
with the
No.
No.
Marky, thanks. Oh my gosh, how weird is this? Daniel Wadley captured this video of a lifetime when he came upon two lynx. This is in the Great North Woods. You know, they're chatting on the side of the road. Wadley says he was on Route 6 in Sandwich Academy, Grant Township, near the Maine Public Reserve land when he saw these two lynx on the side of the road. Again, just having kind of I think it's probably husband and wife.
Yeah. How can you not burst out laughing when you hear this, you know? I actually overlooked this on Facebook today because I saw the video popping up on my feed, but I never had the sound on.
Oh.
So I didn't appreciate it until I listened to it.
I posted on Facebook that I thought I was loud when I got with my girlfriend.
Right.
But apparently we are not loud enough.
A live look at Cindy's Friday night with her girlfriend.
That's right. That's right. You're one of them. You should know.
That's true. That's true. We have a lot more coming up on News Center Maine at 5:30.
We do, and yet another reason that you need to check your credit report regularly. Police in Kennebunk have caught a couple of guys who were rifling through people's mailboxes and taking out credit cards in their names. It was a really time-consuming scam, but you know what? It worked. We're going to show you what they were doing. And we all know that there's this whole list of things that you're not allowed to bring on an airplane, but are hemp and CBD products, as well as medical marijuana, allowed in your luggage? We are going to verify. It's all coming up at 5:30.
All right.
Sounds
Back
good.
to you.
Very good. All right, guys. We'll see you on News Center Maine at 5:30.
Good.
Back with Brain Jobs after this.
All right, so I don't like to show my own tweets necessarily. It's usually not a good time. However, last night I tweeted this out. This was a tornado that was ongoing in Kansas, and see that little blue speck? I circled it at the beginning, so wait for it to reset.
Yeah.
See the blue there?
Yes, right
traveling? That's a tornado debris signature. So basically the tornado is picking up objects, flinging them, and the radar is picking up on that. It's one of the surest signs, short of a spotter that can tell you, hey, I saw the tornado, that there is in fact a tornado on the ground. Because there can be rotation, not necessarily tornado. Luckily we don't see it a lot here in Maine, but here's how the tornado debris signature works. You got your tornado out here. It's going along, it's ripping up fields. Typically, you're not going to see too much debris from just, open plains and fields. But if you get into treed area, or unfortunately more often, populated areas with houses and cars, the tornado, if it's strong enough, and you usually see these tornado debris signatures an EF3 or above, it will pick up parts of, or sometimes the whole object, and throw them. And as a result, when the radar is sensing rain, and these beams are going out, it catches this big object, recognizes that it's really large, sends that signal back. And so there's something called a correlation coefficient. You can basically tell how big an object is. So you see that these large objects are being thrown. So when that happens, everybody has to get out of the way.
That's
it's a
the true
very, very
sign.
dangerous
Violent
sign.
tornado.
Yep.
Hey, your attention to detail is immaculate, by the way. Dorothy and Toto in this house.
Right.
Good drawing.
I thought so.
News Center Maine at 5:30 starts right now.